Okay, here we are, our last lesson already of this unit, Unit 1, Lesson 3, that's U1L3. So far we've talked about segments, lines, planes, points, things like that. Now we're going to be talking about angles. Again, this whole unit was kind of giving us the basics of geometry so that we can build on it. And we have 3 things we're going to talk about. We're hopefully going to make it quick. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be talking about, again, please be copying this as you go. If you need to pause the video at any point to copy, please do so and keep your notes organized since they're going to have a quiz on this tomorrow. So starting with an angle, definition of an angle, it tells us how wide open something is. Now, when you're talking about a line, lines tell us, or if we're measuring a line segment, how long something is. When I have an angle, it's telling me, like this piece right here, right where my hands meet, how wide open something is. So this is not open very wide, this is open a lot wider, right? So whenever we have a measurement for an angle, it's going to be given in degrees, and that tells us how wide open something is. It does not, and this is a super important common misconception, it doesn't tell us anything about how long these lines are here. It just tells us the angle is this wide, yeah? I could keep these lines going forever and ever and ever into like this huge V, but the angle measurement is actually still going to be the same. Even if I go like this, the angle my wrists make right there is still the same. The length of the lines that make it, they don't matter. Now we have parts of an angle, and I've kind of talked about a couple. One is the vertex, and that is, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I can write. That is where the angle is starting from, right? So this right here, oh, come on. There we go. So where A is at, this is the vertex. So label that on your picture as well. Right where my palms met, right there, that's the vertex of the angle. Or sometimes I might call it a corner, something like that. But where they meet, that's the vertex. We also have the sides of the angle as well. So these two here, AC and AB, those are what we call the sides of an angle. So with my hand, right where my palms meet, right at the base there, that's the vertex. And then my hands are the sides of the angle. Now, we can name an angle in several different ways. The first way is 3 letters with the vertex at the center. Because anytime I name something, you have to be able to tell somebody that name and for them to look at the picture and know exactly what you're talking about. We'll talk more later about why it is super important you have the vertex in the center. But if you notice, we have 3 letters here. I can choose those 3 letters to name it as long as I put the vertex in the center when I name it. We can also sometimes name with just the vertex. Like I could call this angle A because A is the vertex and that tells me, oh, it's this angle. Sometimes we can't do that though, and I'll talk about that later. Lastly, sometimes there will be a number. I don't mean the degrees. I mean, sometimes there'll be like a little 1 or a little 2. We're going to see that later in the lesson. And so if there were a little 1, just a 1, no degree symbol by it, we could go, that's angle 1. So we have these options. Again, please pause and rewind if you need more time to copy because I'm just going to keep talking. So let's try this. What are the 4 ways we can name the angle? So there are 2 ways by naming it with 3 letters. There is 1 way to name it with the vertex. And notice I gave you a little 1 here. That's going to be the last way to name this. Now I'm going to give you one little thing. You don't obviously need to type this because you can't type this into your Edpuzzle. But when we name them, the symbol for angle is a little mini angle out in front. Whoops, what happened there? Pretend that's an angle symbol. I don't want to go back and erase it. So we have the angle symbol, and then we put the letters next to it, and I'll show you that. So take a second, try and answer this. If you're not sure of all 4, give me at least 1 or 2 ways. There's 4 different ways I can name this angle. Go ahead and give it a shot, separate them by commas. Okay, let's look. So again, I have my angle symbol out in front. You couldn't type that. So I have two different ways I can name this with 3 letters. R has to be in the center though, because that's the vertex. So I can go SRT. So I would call this angle SRT. Or I can go the other way and call it TRS. I cannot call it RST. The vertex has to be in the middle. Notice the R is in the middle. Now again, I can also call this by just the vertex. I can call this angle R. That's good, we can do that. Not in all cases, and we'll talk about that later. Or because they gave me that little 1 there, I can call this angle 1. Now again, this doesn't mean that the measurement is 1 degree. That little 1 doesn't have a degree symbol by it, so we just say, oh, that's the name of the angle. This angle is called angle 1. So those are your 4 options. So let's talk now angle classifications. We're on the second topic already here. Now we can classify angles by the size of their angles, and there are 3 classifications. I really hope these are familiar to you guys. You should have learned these in elementary school, yeah? But we're gonna go over them. So go ahead and copy this table, pause if you need to. So we got 3 classifications. We have right, acute, and obtuse. Yeah, and that's kind of how we can remember them. To start with, a right angle measures exactly 90 degrees. You guys should know this. A right angle is like a corner in a room. It's exactly an L. Yeah, that's a right angle, and that's exactly 90 degrees. You will see if it's a right angle, a little box in the corner to show that, yep, that is 90 degrees. If I had a box, I could slide it into the corner and it would fit perfectly. That's what that little symbol means. Now, acute, we call it an acute angle because it's small. It's less than 90 degrees. So this can be anything. Really, we need to say bigger than 0, but we're going to make that assumption, but less than 90. So this can be anything. We could draw a bunch of different acute angles. That is smaller than 90 degrees. If here's 90 degrees, this is opening up less than 90. So it's cute. It's a little baby angle. It's acute, less than 90. Now, obtuse is the opposite. More than 90 degrees. Now again, typically we say this as more than 90 but less than 180, but that's okay. We're not going to be dealing with angles greater than 180 anyways in this course, which is a possibility. You can do that in other courses. So an example of an obtuse angle, I need it to now, if this is 90, that's opening up more. Again, you could draw any example of an angle bigger than 90. These are just examples, yeah. There's tons of different angles I could draw that are less than 90 for acute, tons of different angles I could draw that are more than 90 for obtuse. So let's go ahead and keep going from here. Please, again, I'm going to keep saying it, pause, pause, pause when you need to. So we're going to classify and name the angles, yeah? So let's go ahead and look at letter A. I'll do letter A with you so you know what I mean, and then you're going to try B and C. So classify and name the angles. So to start with, this tells us this is 20 degrees. Now, this little curve right here, I just want to let you know, is how we kind of show what angle we're talking about. If I see one of those, yeah, that's okay. That angle is 20 degrees. If I see another angle, you don't need to copy this down, but if I see another angle with 2 rainbows, that means these angles are not the same. This has 1 little rainbow and this has 2 rainbows. But if I saw somewhere else in my picture an angle with 1 rainbow, that means these are the same. So any angles that have the same number of rainbows are going to be the same measurement. But again, we're going to talk more about that later. Where's my eraser? Let's talk about classifying this angle now. Okay, so to classify, my options are right, acute, and obtuse. This is 20 degrees. It's a little baby angle. So we would classify this as acute because it is less than 90, still baby angle. Now again, there are 3 different ways I can name this angle because they don't give me a little number, to name it by. So I just have letters. So I'm going to write all three possibilities. When you answer B and C, you only have to give one. So I could name this by just its vertex. Angle A is one name. That's just its vertex. Or I can do all three letters as long as A stays in the middle. So I can call this angle CAT, so angle cat. Yes, that was intentional. Or I can flip it and do angle TAC, angle tack. I cannot do ACT. C is not the vertex, so we can't put that in the center. So you are going to try these two now. You are going to say one name and then classify, is this angle right, acute, or obtuse? You are going to say one name, hint for letter C, there's only one possible answer, and then you're going to say right, acute, obtuse. Go ahead and try both. Okay, let's check. So for B, this is obtuse. It's bigger than a corner. It's 115 degrees. That's bigger than 90. It's obtuse. Three different ways you could have named this. You only needed to choose one. I can call this angle G because that's the vertex, or I can call it EGW, or I can call it WGE. Those were your three options. If you picked any of those, you were correct. Letter C now, well, this has a little box. So guaranteed this is a right angle. And there's only one way to name it because we only have this little number given to us. So you had to call this angle 1. Those were your only options for letter C. Okay, we are at our last section, special angle relationships. So we have 4 we're going to go through. Again, this is all just base level stuff, and then in class we're going to be able to practice it a lot more. So we have 4 special angle relationships that can occur when we have several angles together. Again, pause as needed to copy. So complementary angles, this is the first special relationship. I need to click out of this real quick. Complementary angles add to 90 degrees. So you can see here, this is one angle, and this is another angle. And when I squash them together, they make 90 degrees. So this angle plus this angle adds to 90 degrees. That doesn't mean they're equal. That just means if I put them together, they could add to 90. So it could be like 30 plus 60 or 50 plus 40. Yeah, doesn't mean they're equal. Now, a way to remember that complementary means 90 degrees, I had a kid show me this a couple years ago. If you go to the word complementary, if we draw a line by C, it makes a little 90 in the front, right? That's the co for complementary. What? It's a 90 degrees. Yeah. So complementary adds to 90 degrees. Okay, supplementary now. These add to 180 degrees. Now, how we can tell these as a picture, if you guys didn't know this, I think a couple of you did, a straight line opens to 180 degrees. So this would be like if it's really windy outside and your door just like blam, flaps open flat against the wall, it's kind of creating a straight line. Now, the reason why a straight line also creates 180 degrees, for those of you guys that are skateboarders, you'll know this, or just in general, you might know this, that a circle, a full rotation, has 360 degrees. Yeah, that's a circle, has 360 degrees. So if you ever do like a skateboard trick, it's called a 360. That means you're doing one full rotation. Yeah. Half of a circle has 180 degrees. Yeah. So if you notice, this right here is a half of a circle and it has 180 degrees. So again, a straight line has 180 because when it opens up, if you follow the path of the tips of my fingers, oh, I make this rainbow. my fingertips made a half circle, which is 180 degrees. So again, a straight line, supplementary angles, add to 180. They make that straight line, which again is like half of a circle. Okay, so looking at these pictures here, let me get my face out of the way. It says, based on their labelings, which pair of angles are complementary and which are supplementary? So I'm going to scroll down. We've got 4 angles here. Go ahead and answer based on our definitions. There's 2 sets of angles that are complementary, and there's 2 that are supplementary. Again, complementary means they create a right angle. They add to 90. Supplementary means they add to 180 and they create a straight line. Go ahead and answer this. Okay, so you should have gotten that A and D. Those ones are complementary. Complementary. They add to 90. We can see that in the corner. For B and C, those ones are supplementary. They create a straight line, which is 180 degrees. Supplementary adds to 180, complementary adds to 90. Again, we can see this straight line going on right here. This angle put together with this angle is creating that straight line. Okay, last relationships. We're almost there. We have a couple more vocab words, lots of stuff, which is why it's good you're doing this lesson because you're going to have a quiz on this. Those who don't do this lesson are going to be super duper lost. So we have a word here, adjacent. You may know this word. You may have heard it before. Adjacent means right next to, which specifically it has to share a side. Yeah. So when you guys come in person, you'll see my room is right next to the Ram Shack. Yeah, I'm not Mr. Mayfield's room, obviously. I'm the room next to the Ram Shack. That's not Mr. Mayfield. Yeah. So I am adjacent, actually right behind me is the Ram Shack because we share this wall. Yeah. We talk about this later, but I am opposite the 200 building. So I don't share a side with the 200 building. We would call that opposite. If you guys know Miss Mercier, Mr. Shovestall, Miss Boyd, the ALC, that's what I'm pointing to, yeah? I'm opposite that building. I'm adjacent to the Ram Shack because we share a wall. So these 2 angles, this one here and this one here, notice I wrote over this one twice. So because those angles share that side, we call them adjacent. They're just touching. Now we have a similar picture here for both of these last words. I know it's been a lot of vocab. We're going to practice this in class, so we got it. We have vertical angles. So let's fill in this definition. Vertical angles are created by the same lines and are opposite each other. They are going to be equal. So notice I have one line here and one line here. Yeah. So I have 4 different angles I can kind of see here. Actually, technically I have more, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4 angles, right? These angles are opposite each other. So this is what I was just talking about. Opposite means across from. So this angle is vertical to this angle. And here's kind of a trick to know how. Vertical means up and down, right? So vertical, if you notice, if I draw a line down these angles, I create a vertical line they both go through. Yeah. So those angles are vertical because they are opposite across from each other. And again, they're going to be equal. It's kind of like a mirror picture. When I have a cross here, yeah, up top, down bottom, those are going to be equal. Now, I actually have one more pair of vertical angles. I'm going to designate these with 2 rainbows to show that they are different from the other angles. These are also vertical. Now, if I were to draw a line, obviously it wouldn't be a vertical line. It'd be a horizontal. But it's the same thing, yeah? If I can draw a line through them, through the center of the angle, those are vertical. And again, they're going to be equal. So last thing, again, we have this same sort of picture. We have two lines crossing. We have what's called a linear pair. These are adjacent angles. So adjacent means they share a side, right? I share a wall with the ram shack, so I'm adjacent to the ram shack. They share a side. They add to 180, which means they create a line. Let me see if I can get some colors going here. So there's actually 4 different pairs of linear pairs that I could draw here, but I'm going to just show one. So here's one angle. An angle adjacent to it, I actually have 2 angles that are adjacent. I have this one, you can see my little marker there going, and I have this one. Actually, both of those are going to create a linear pair, but I'm going to go ahead and say this one here. So notice they share a side, right? I marked this side in both red and green, so that means they're adjacent. And if you also notice, if I follow this line down, pushing those angles together creates a line. They create this line. That's why it's called a linear pair. They create a line. And again, that's 180 degrees right there. A straight line opens up to 180 degrees. Oops. Okay, so we are on our last slide now. Hopefully this didn't take too long. I'm going to see what the time is. It may have been 20 minutes. It's a lot of information. Okay, so it says, which 2 pairs of angles are vertical angles? So we have this picture here. I have 2 pairs. Remember, vertical means across from each other. So I'm going to give you options you can choose from. You're going to choose 2. Which ones are vertical? Go ahead and try it. Okay, so my vertical angles have to be across from each other. So angle 1 is vertical to angle 3. So that's my first pair of linear angles. Again, they're right across from each other. That's vertical. And angle 4 and angle 2 are vertical as well. Those are our vertical angles. Let's go ahead and try the next one then. Go ahead and just give 2 angles, so 1 pair, that make a linear pair. There are 4 different options. Go ahead and try it. Okay, so linear pairs means they have to touch. So if you chose angle 1, you could have said angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. You could have said angle 1 and angle 4 are a linear pair. Those actually are both linear pairs. They're both touching and they both create a straight line. If you chose angle 3, same thing. If you chose angle 3, you just would have had to choose one of the angles on each side of it. So angle 3 and angle 4 create a linear pair, and angle 3 and angle 2 also do. So any one of those options would have been correct. I know this lesson was a lot. We're going to practice all of this stuff in class a lot more. I just really needed you to have it all written down and kind of an idea of what we're going to talk about. We're going to expand more in class.